Welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. Feels a little weird. No college football for Ohio State for another couple of weeks, but we do have college football playoff action starting on Friday. We will learn Ohio State's opponent coming up, whether it is the Hurricanes of Miami or the Aggies of Texas A&M. Then, of course, we have three more games. We will be talking about all of these games here on this live edition. Now, the question I get asked the most is, Noon, where the hell have you been? Why haven't we seen a show? Well, I've been busy, just trying to take care of a couple things, and I'm here now. I'm going to try and do better about being on the air more regularly, waiting for some of the audience to show up. Again, it has probably been couple months since I've done a show. So I'm glad to be here, glad to be amongst my friends. Be sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. Don't miss out on a single episode, not only of the Big Me Kickoff, but Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, Buckeye Weekly Podcast, Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. I don't know if there's a name to the show that we do with Ross to break down X's and O's, but all the great content at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Not a member of Buckeye Huddle yet, now's the time to get on board and join us over at Buckeye Huddle. For the price of a crummy cheese pizza delivered, you can get a full month of Buckeye Huddle here. I mean, this would get you all the way pretty much to the national championship game. You'd miss it by a day or two, but you're going to like it so much that you're not going to want to. You're not going to want to miss out. So, join us over at Buckeye Huddle. Check us out. Join the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Columbus. Most chill, awesome message board that I've been a part of. And I know there are a lot of them out there, and I'm not here to sit there and pick and choose winners, but I am here to pick and choose winners, and the Huddle board is a winner. So check us out there. Now, again, my goal on this show, don't know how long we're going to go. 30 minutes probably seems about right, but super chats and a lot of conversation will keep us going longer. We'll talk about the 4 upcoming games. I'll try to answer some questions on things that I can answer. There certainly are going to be questions that I could get asked that I don't have an answer to. And I think anybody who knows me knows that I'm not going to just throw something out there just to try and fill the void of silence. If I don't know an answer, I'm going to tell you as much. I'm going to be like, I really don't know. So, be sure to get your questions in and we'll get going. But we'll give it another minute or two before we really kind of talk about the crux of this show being the first round of the college football playoff. I am wearing my ugly Christmas sweater. We'll pan down a little bit. The two main guys for Christmas together again, drinking some eggnog. I won an ugly Christmas sweater competition earlier today, which was nice by doing that. So do you guys like to wear ugly Christmas sweaters? Or holiday sweaters? I mean, I don't know what everybody's preference is. I'm not here to be the word police or anything like that. But I have probably not worn this sweater in a year or two. So I'm like, oh my God, is it going to fit? Is it going to have moth holes in it or whatever? But it fit and it worked. And I enjoyed wearing it and showing off my ugly Christmas sweater. I actually have 2, but I went for this one. Probably one that I wouldn't wear to church. Just, I think everybody there would have a sense of humor about it. It's not, it's not outright offensive or anything like that. But you just have to play to people's sensibilities. All right, we've made it far enough. Let's talk about the upcoming games. And again, super chats will get you to the head of the line. Certainly not, pandering for super chats, but then again, not going to turn them down either. So away we go. And we have one game coming up on Friday, and that's a game that a lot of people are looking forward to. That's the Alabama-Oklahoma game. Now, that's the 8-9 game. That is 8 p.m. Eastern on December 19th. I did actually prepare some notes, so I will kind of go through my notes. So if you see me reading along, it's because I wanted to have points here because I can't remember everything anymore, so I have to have some things there. But this is a series that Oklahoma leads 5-2-1 Oklahoma has won the last 2 games, and they've both been league games. Because let's remember, Oklahoma is a member of the SEC. I mean, that is a relatively new phenomenon that they're part of the SEC. But they've had Alabama's number. But you continue to go through this series. They've played 3 times in the postseason, and Alabama leads that series 2-0-1. For the kids out there, yes, there was a day and an age where there were ties, and that was regular season, postseason, whatever. A tie happened. I mean, I remember ties back when I was in college. I was there for the greatest victory in Ohio State football history, a tie against Michigan. Really did not know how to react to that one, but we're not trying to get there and talk about that. I mean, I guess if you want to talk about it, we can. Billy Tuesday, offense is not an option in Bama versus Okies. We'll get into that here in a second. The line as of Monday, and hint, I did all of my research on Monday. I had a couple of hours. I was a little under the weather yesterday, so I didn't get to do any more research on Tuesday. But on Monday, I sat down and did a couple hours of research. Bama -1 after opening Bama +1. So the line has moved a little bit. So you've got Alabama, who certainly I don't want to get away from how my notes are. Inconsistent. I think we'll just sit there and say inconsistent is a safe way of putting what Alabama's been. And then we got Oklahoma, a really good defensive team that isn't so hot at offense. Dare I say the SEC's Iowa? Would that be fair? I know that there are probably a lot of Iowa fans that are like, "Oh, don't you lump us in with them?" And there are probably a lot of Oklahoma fans that are like, "Don't you lump us in with them?" But offensively challenged, pretty good defense. The Iowa defense not up to the standards that it's been in past years, and I didn't do any research on Iowa, so I can't compare the numbers the way I would want to normally if this were a full blown show or whatever. Billy Tuesday says that it's more than fair, so there you go. Bama has 3 losses this year, including a 23-21 heads up loss to Oklahoma. That game was at Alabama. So I do remember that game pretty well. It was a big deal because obviously, I think if you're an Ohio State person or just a college football person, whenever Alabama loses, college football wins. And we got a super chat from Tapaiho. 14. Do I think Alabama can put up 21 points against Oklahoma? Sure, they could. Will they? I don't know about that. I mean, obviously, we're not dealing with some of the stunted offense that we saw out of Alabama last year, but where the hell's Ryan Williams been? Where the hell has been this offense that was supposed to be this, that, and the other? And I got some numbers that we'll get into here in a second. I mean, it really has been a disappointing year for Alabama's offense. And again, we were talking about an Alabama team that ends up getting in as a 9 seed. 3 losses. Are they worthy? Are they not worthy? It's Alabama. It's SEC. We've got to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's not about who you beat. It's who you lose to. Alabama's losses. An Alabama loss, an SEC loss is worth 2 of your wins. And I say that a little tongue in cheek, and I say that a little seriously. I think that there are a lot of people that want to sit there and just put Alabama in pen if Alabama goes 9-3 or better. And here we stand. I mean, they got the 3 losses. I mean, obviously we'll get into that here in a second with what happened there. In that 23-21 loss, Oklahoma only had 1 offensive touchdown. Oklahoma also had 3 field goals and an 87-yard interception return. So the Oklahoma offense did not show up. John Mateer did play in that game. Remember, John Mateer was lost for part of the season, had the hand injury. A lot of questions about when will he come back. Oklahoma fans ready to put, the surgeon that worked on Mateer's hand on the $5 bill. They were so happy with him. But Oklahoma only had 212 yards of offense in that game. Alabama had 406. So as I'm sitting here and I'm burying the Alabama offense and how bad it is and how terrible it is, Bama did have 406 yards of total offense. Neither team could run the ball. That was ultimately the biggest takeaway I had going back and looking at numbers. Alabama ran for 2.4 yards per carry. Oklahoma ran slightly better, 2.6. That's just not going to get it done. I mean, if you go 2.4 like Alabama and you run it 4 times, you're not getting a first down. You're not getting 10 yards. Oklahoma barely getting it, but you're going to have to convert on every 4th down. Bama gave it away 3 times, a couple of fumbles, and an interception. Since the time these two teams played each other, Oklahoma's averaged only 17 points per game. And that's only been over 2 games. That's Missouri and LSU. LSU kind of a dumpster fire at some points this year. Missouri probably not one of Drink's best teams that he's had. Alabama's 2-1 since. Lost in the SEC championship game. Beat Auburn by 7, only by 7, and not a very good Auburn team, and then beat Eastern Illinois in chicken shit Saturday. That Eastern Illinois game means nothing to me. I almost didn't even want to mention it. I almost didn't even want to give it any oxygen because, like, legitimately, it would be like playing Wittenberg on the week before the Michigan game. I vehemently oppose that. I do give credit to the SEC for finally going to 9 conference games, kicking and screaming. We'll see what that means for these big series out there because there is a lot of onus on playing these home games. What it means for the income, what it means for the economy of your city, more than just the gate, but what it means for all the bars, what it means for everything else. I mean, it is a lot of money, and it's money that I use the varsity club as an example at Ohio State, and I haven't been in the VC in years, but I had heard, and I don't remember the number, what the percent was, and it was an outrageous percentage of what percent of the yearly take that the VC made on its home Saturdays, on the home Ohio State Saturdays versus the other 357 days of the year. And I mean, it was an astronomical number. So, no, you gotta and for every varsity club there, there's I don't even know Rally House. I mean, I was going to say Spirit Concepts. I don't think Spirit Concepts exists anymore. Rally House, whatever you may have, plus two, just everything that comes in with the tailgating and everything else. So, we're kind of getting away from talking about the college football playoff, other than the fact that Oklahoma is going to get this big game in Norman, and it's going to mean a lot for the economy there. Your top 4 teams don't get a home game. They get an open week, which is better in a lot of ways in terms of the health of your team. But it's I think that if you caught Ross Bjork in a moment of honesty, he'd be like, "Well, I'd kind of rather have the game for for the gate and for everything else that's going to be there." But it is what it is. So yeah, Bama 2-1 since the loss to Oklahoma. That Auburn game not really great. Now, this is a very even game, and I'll look at my comments here in a second. As I said, I am looking at my notes. I do want to go over my notes. I want to be factually correct. See if I have any other comments. Troy says LSU. Who exactly? That's Lane Kiffin's LSU, by the way, and not getting why OSU doesn't play the winner of this game instead of the U or A&M. Seeding issues once again. Again, it comes down to the fact of they need to reseed. You really just need to reseed. But the thing is if Miami wins and Miami's the 10 seed, you would get Miami. I mean, again, you sit there and have that opportunity to do that. I mean, because remember, Ohio State's the 2. Ohio State's not the 1. So Ohio State, once you get to the next round, you total 9. If seeds hold, it would be 2 versus 7, 1 versus 8, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Total is 9. So Ohio State isn't the 1 seed. Ohio State doesn't get any special preference, any special treatment, or anything like that. Ohio State is the 2 seed. So, according to how brackets work, Ohio State is getting who it should get. But, I hear you there because, again, if A&M wins, A&M's the 7. So 7-2 makes 9, and that's how that works. But I asked Grok, and people are like, well, why do you use Grok? Why don't you use ChatGPT? I use whichever AI I think of in the moment. And I asked it, simulate this game 100 times and tell me who wins. It has number 9 Alabama beating number 8 Oklahoma 52 out of 100 times. So Alabama wins it 52 times, Oklahoma wins it 48 times. What does an AI know about college football? Not a whole hell of a lot. Not a whole hell of a lot. I mean, but with that being said, it goes to show, and you'll see as we get into some of these other games, the numbers are not nearly as even, when it comes to that. So we'll get to the next couple games here in a second. I will look and see if I have any questions waiting for me. Tookie G, go Bucks. Exactly. Glad to have you here. Glad to have all of my regulars here. Again, didn't super promote this show. Noon, do you expect people to show up when you do a show every month, 2 months, 3 months? Probably not. But we're going to work on that. We're going to work on it. Again, a lot going on. I just haven't really had it in me to do a lot of shows. I do appreciate the couple of people who have reached out to me to check in on me, to see how I'm doing. It means the world to me. Not one to put a lot of my own business out there, so we're not going to do that. But again, just dealing with a lot of stuff. Lisa Sims says, good afternoon, Kevin. How are you doing, Lisa? Glad to see you. You're definitely a regular here in the Ohio State podcasting space. Like to see all of our regulars and see people who I haven't seen before. We have Troy V. In real life, over the past 2 years, Oklahoma wins 2 out of 2. Bama once again the king of hypothetical games. I just, I don't know who I think is going to win this game. I'm going to say Alabama, and here's why I think I'm taking Alabama. Alabama has to veer less out of its lane to play enough offense to win this game. Oklahoma has to be something that Oklahoma is not, competent on offense. Oklahoma has to be competent on offense to play this game. I have not seen competent Oklahoma offense enough down the stretch to say that that is going to be the case. Once again, remember, Oklahoma only had 1 offensive touchdown the last time these two teams played. Yes, 3 field goals is still 9 points. An 87-yard interception return for a touchdown is still 6 points, point pending. So I'm not saying that those other 16 points don't matter, but they were only able to score 1 offensive touchdown. And I don't think that the Oklahoma offense is trending in the right direction. Now, Alabama certainly has some injuries. LT Overton being out on the offensive line doesn't help. I mean, I think that there are some things that happen as the year goes along that make things more complicated. But I think that if all things being equal, I think all things being similar, out of the box Alabama offensively is closer to working than out of the box Oklahoma offense. Now, I certainly think that the Oklahoma defense could do some things to shut down Alabama's offense, but not to bring up a painful subject, I seem to remember a team only giving up 13 points and losing 13-10 here recently. So you got to be able to put up some points. I just don't think Oklahoma is capable of doing it. Now, Grok, on the other hand, 48 times out of 100 thinks that Oklahoma wins this game. So I'm looking forward to it. I probably will get like a big box of tacos or something like that and drink some beers and really enjoy that game. I've been having to get to bed early because I've had to get up early for some things, but that'll be a game that I will break my own curfew and watch all night long and maybe even watch it again on replay. We got some comments while I've been gone talking to this. Luke G, thanks for putting up with us, Kevin. We appreciate you. No, thank you, Luke. Without y'all, I'm just talking to myself. and I talk to myself enough. And it's once I start answering myself that things get a little crazy. But I enjoy doing these shows. I enjoy talking to y'all. I mean, you guys make this fun. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching us Facebook, check us still out on the YouTube channel. That is, by far the best way to get in touch with us. I've never been shy about people emailing me. Kevin at buckeyegrove.com is how you can get in touch with me. But the best way to get in touch with me is by signing up for Buckeye Huddle. BuckeyeHuddle.com. Join us there. Get all of our premium content. Get all of our message board content. So much great stuff over there at Buckeye Huddle. That is by far the best way to support us. We love super chats. We got to share those with Google. We don't have to share our memberships with Google when it comes to Buckeye Huddle. So that is the best way to make sure that almost 100% of the money is going to the people who are doing the work. Tom, Tony, Mark, myself, Ross, Andrew, everybody. So that's the best way. Doug343, hey everyone, go Bucks. Luke G, I feel like I keep waiting for Old Bama to show up like a scar reopening, but hopefully Old Bama left forever with Saban. We've seen Bama kind of rebirth itself through the years at times, but yeah, Saban had them operating on such a level that it's hard to even put into words the level he had them working in. I mean, of course, if you sit there and talk to Michigan fans who think that Kalen DeBoer is on line one to go over there, I don't know. I would put them in touch with the Penn State fans that thought that Kalen DeBoer was on line one to go over there. It is what it is. But with that being said, I agree with your point. I think that old Bama is asleep. I don't know if they're gone forever. Forever is a long time. It's been forever since I've done a show, but forever is a long time. It is a long time, and it may not be this coach, and it may not be the next coach, and it may not even be the coach after that. But things could turn around, and then college football could get turned upside down once again if we get to a point of where we have a split off and the top 36, 48, 60 teams are competing, and a lot of the bottom weight gets cut off, and it's like, okay, everybody can now spend money this way and spend money that way and do this and do that, and none of these 5 things aren't illegal anymore, and we're going to take off some of the scholarship restrictions and things like that. Who knows what happens at that point. So I don't want to say forever, but I know you're just using forever as a phrase. You're not using it as a definite measurement of time. Neither am I. Mika Hanna, hey everyone, go Bucks. Hey Mika, hope you're doing well. Hope that your show's going well. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but then again, I haven't had a chance to check out a lot of our own content. So I don't know if I'm gonna have a chance to go back and check out my own show. But I hope you're doing well, Mika. Thanks for all the text messages, by the way. Sorry, I've been a little delinquent in getting back to you. I just again have a lot going on, and sometimes it's hard to reach out to people. I don't care who we play. I think after the IU loss, we will have some hungry Buckeyes in the playoffs. 13-10. 13-10 is a familiar score. Look at some of the faces of the Buckeyes walking off the field in Indianapolis. While they didn't have to stick a flag in somebody's rear end after a whole skirmish, I think we saw some unhappy faces. I don't think Ohio State's going to come out and be flat. That's for certain. Going and playing in Dallas, I think there's a benefit. I think there's a bit of a benefit playing in Dallas versus the Rose Bowl. Because when you play in the Rose Bowl, and it didn't hurt Ohio State last year. I'm here to say that. I have my own eyes. I was there, whatever. But sometimes the Rose Bowl itself can be viewed as the end of the rainbow, the reward of itself. Going to the Cotton Bowl. I love the Cotton Bowl. I love the people that put on the Cotton Bowl. I lived in Dallas for 5 years. Some of my best friends on this planet live in Dallas. A couple of my ride or dies, people that would be the first people I would call if I was ever in trouble, live in Dallas. So I have a lot of love for Dallas. But the Cotton Bowl does not have the same clout as the Rose Bowl. So you sit there and maybe you feel like you're having to come up through the losers bracket. And There ain't nothing wrong with being the number 2 seed. Let me tell you that. There ain't nothing wrong with being the number 2 seed. But are you coming up through the losers bracket? Do you have something else to prove? Do you have more to prove? Because you're not the one. You're not coming off a conference championship. You sit there and you finally took care of the team up north after that couple of year hiccup, and you come out and you lay an egg against Indiana. And you offensively lay an egg. The defense played more than great. Should have won the game. 13 points. 3 of those points were basically here. Here's a turnover. Let me hand the ball right to you and go ahead and just kick the field goal. So, and again, I'm not a points denier. I'm not going to say, well, those points shouldn't have counted. You know what should have counted? Ohio State putting up any points on a couple of its trips to the red zone. If Ohio State puts up 3 in each of them, Ohio State wins by 3. If Ohio State puts up just 7 in one of them, Ohio State wins by 4. Now, you can't sit there and butterfly effect this and say nothing would change if Ohio State took this lead and everything else, that Indiana wouldn't have attacked things differently. But Indiana may not have been as successful as it was. Indiana could have felt the pressure. You know, you don't know. We saw Indiana perform under pressure at Penn State and win that game. So I'm not going to sit there and have revisionist history and say that Indiana would have folded like a cheap suit if it was under pressure. But you don't know how things would have broken down. So, no, we just don't know. We just don't know. Let me get through some of these comments, and then we will get to our next game, which is Miami versus A&M, the game that people care about. I'm trying to do these in chronological order. By the time we get to Ole Miss Tulane, we're gonna go rapid fire on that one, because there's that one. It's a 21-point line or something terrible. I just don't have it in me to talk too much about that one. I'm glad you're doing a show, but I made sure to keep to be here when I noticed you were going to do a show, and hope things get easier for me soon. I appreciate it, Lisa. Thank you so much. Thoughts and prayers, even if you don't know what you're thinking or praying about, thoughts and prayers are appreciated and welcomed. So are super chats. But personally, I'll take the thoughts and prayers right now. Mika Hanna says that Ty Simpson is overrated. Is he overrated? Is he properly rated? I don't know a lot of people that are kissing his rear end. I don't know a lot of people that are coming out there and being like, Ty Simpson got screwed in the Heisman voting. Ty Simpson this, Ty Simpson that. I think Ty Simpson is who we think he is. I think Ty Simpson's going to be a lot better next year, but I think that Alabama needs to really kind of evaluate what Alabama's doing. And I think that the offensive side of the coaching staff needs to have a little bit of a come to Jesus with each other and figure out what the heck is going wrong. Again, as I sat there and said, Alabama in that game only ran for 2.4 yards per carry against Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma, one of the best defenses in college football. So maybe it's forgivable to a certain extent that there were some issues. But with that being said, there were way too many issues. There were way too many issues for Alabama to be able to win that game. And yet it was still close. Let's keep going here. Troy V, that Oklahoma defense against a one-dimensional Bama, I picked OU. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not pot committed. If I'm not one who goes out and says, "Oh, I have a bet on this game or I have a bet on that game." I think that, everybody, some people want to talk about their actions, some people don't. I don't bet that often. I just don't feel right about it, and I lose too much. I'm picking Alabama, but I wouldn't put the mortgage on it. Hell, I wouldn't put the trash bill on it. Trash bill is only $30. I wouldn't put the trash bill on it. So, we'll see. Lisa says, I'm wondering how hurt Simpson is. How much will it impact the game? I mean, I don't think anybody is 100%, 90%, 80% right now. I think the best you can hope for is being about 70%. And Lisa never sat there and tried to make this about being 100% versus 70% versus 60%, whatever. Everybody's beat up. It's a matter of how tough you are, how good your training staff is, how your how the load management worked. Are you gassed at this point? That's one thing I'll say about Ohio State. Ohio State ran with such a pace that none of the guys should be like completely gassed. Should be. Now, does Ohio State have another gear in it? Does it have a couple more gears in it? Where is this fast offense? Oh, when it's time to sit there and arm the Death Star, we're going to arm the Death Star and we're going to blow up Alderaan. I don't know about that. We didn't see a picked up pace against Indiana. Are we going to see it here in the playoffs? I mean, at least we're going to see fast tracks indoor, and if it's outdoor, it's going to be in good weather generally. And you do get that, you do get a couple of rainstorms in South Florida on a daily basis, but generally that's during the day. Maybe we see some things sped up there, but to Lisa's point, I'm sure that Simpson degraded as the year went on. I appreciate all you do and behind the scenes as well. I do enjoy my behind the scenes work. I'm hoping next season to do more stuff in terms of Hungry Huddle and things of that nature. The way that you can best ensure that we do that, though, is by supporting the channel. And that is by hitting the thumbs up, subscribing to the channel. Hey, buy a membership to the channel. That don't cost hardly nothing there, but signing up for Buckeye Huddle makes it all possible, pays for our travel, makes all of that happen. So, we love to do all of this stuff. Tom Orr does a great job. I know I don't like having to praise Tom Orr either. But Tom Orr does a great job with his behind the scenes pieces. Tony with Michigan Monday, with What I Think, What I Know, whatever. I don't remember the name of the piece off the top of my head, but there's so much great content on Buckeye Huddle. So I urge everybody to check it out. I know Mika has been a member over at Buckeye Huddle before. Love you, Kevin, buddy. Love you too, Mika. Mika Hanna says hi to Billy. Lisa Sims says, I feel like we may be the brand new Bama. Maybe. I mean, Ohio State certainly is the dominant team out there. I mean, Ohio State does not have Alabama's press agent in a lot of ways. I think Ohio State needs to win another title. If Ohio State wins another title, especially this year, Ohio State goes back to back. Katie bar the door. It's going to be hard to sit there and say that Ohio State is not the next Bama, is not the current Bama at that point, because Ohio State's going to just have done it, won 3 during the CFP era, all these things. Ryan Day having, winning better than 80% of his games, whatever that record may be. All of that is going to feed into that narrative. Drowsy Dragon wants to know, is it better to play Miami or A&M? We will get into that in a minute. I've got my opinions. I'm far from an expert on this. But Kevin, you are an expert. Well, yes, but I wouldn't want to play A&M in Texas if I could avoid it, but you played Texas in Texas. So playing A&M in Texas really probably isn't that much different per se. I think that Aggie fans may be a little more thirsty, and because Aggie fans are a little more thirsty, maybe they lock down the stadium a little bit more than what Texas was able to do. Maybe there were some Texas fans that were looking past Ohio State and looking for the championship game and didn't go. So, I do think the crowd could maybe be a little more hostile. The Yell leaders are weird as hell. The dudes in the coveralls and everything else, they were just weird. And good friend of mine, his father-in-law was a Yell leader, and he doesn't take umbrage when I say it, but I'm like, I don't care. They're still weird. They're weird as hell. The fish camp and all that stuff. If you ever get a chance after the show, Google what fish camp is for A&M and just some of their traditions. Look, I was in a fraternity in college. I like the idea of ceremony and stuff like that, whether it's a fraternity, whether it's the Freemasons, whether it's whatever. I think whether it's like, whatever it's Skull and Bones at UVA. I think, secret societies. I think there's some cool aspects to it when they're based in the right things. And I'm not saying that A&M's weird culty stuff is not, it's harmless enough. It's harmless enough. But, I enjoy some of that stuff. Let's just keep going through here. Anyone else enjoying the heck out of the mess up north? They got off for sign stealing, but we'll talk about that here at the end of the show. Let me bang through a couple more here and we'll get to the next couple of games. We'll talk about Michigan and we'll call it a show. How about that? We're already at 35 minutes. I'm like, oh, we may go 30 minutes. We may go 30 minutes. I knew there was like a snowball's chance in hell that we were only going to go 30 minutes. I knew we would start talking. I'd start flapping my gums. Catching up with all of my friends and everything else. And, that's just how stuff works. About that business here supporting. Thanks, Tam Talise. I'm glad that you're here supporting off of the Book of Faces. It's definitely would have helped to get TDs instead of I'm guessing field goals there. Oh, yeah, there it is. Field goals. Mika sending prayers and positive vibes. I appreciate that. Comments aren't available on Buckeye Huddle. Yeah, I don't understand all of the technology of it. I know that you can sit there and you can watch the show on Buckeye Huddle, but unless you're watching us through YouTube, I think that YouTube is the only way you can enter comments. Like you can see when I punch up comments, like I punched yours up, Ohio Bookseller. You can see those, but you can't comment. So again, the best way to take in the product is to subscribe to the YouTube channel and join us there. I know Ohio Bookseller has been watching us on YouTube for years, so I don't need to tell Ohio Bookseller twice on that. Doug says, I got something to help take your mind off of things, Kevin. All right, we'll talk offline. I think I know what you're talking about. Ohio Bookseller says, glad to have you back. And Lisa Sims, I can't wait to watch playoff games this weekend. Stress-free. I mean, I think there will be a little bit of stress with Ohio State fans who have a rooting interest in this Miami A&M game. December 20th, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Miami leads the series 3-2. Miami won the most recent game in 2023, a 48-33 shootout. These teams have never met in the postseason. For the history of these programs, they've not played in a bowl game or anything else. There certainly are SEC, ACC bowl games, but it just hasn't happened at this point. So all of the games have taken place on campus venues here in the past. The line on as of Monday, it was A&M by 3.5. Opened up with A&M up by 4.5. So take that for what it's worth. I'm going to kind of clear out some of my lines so I can see what I've got. Miami is 4-0 this year against ranked teams, but has lost to 2 unranked teams. Now, obviously, A&M is ranked. A&M is 7 in the college football playoff rankings. So, Miami winning some games maybe that it shouldn't win or even games, but maybe coming out flat in other games. Something to remember about Miami is Miami does not leave the state of Florida. Miami played 3 games this year outside the state of Florida. Miami's 2-1 outside of the state of Florida, but Miami had to go well into October before it ever left the state. Scheduling is scheduling. I get it. Sometimes, if you can sit there and get 3 non-conference home games, you're going to take it. Oh, no. Let's make this so much more complicated than we have to. I mean, we're talking about a Miami team that can't win the ACC, largely can't do much of anything right as of late in terms of taking the dominant spot in terms of the big 3 in the state of Florida. A&M lost its last game, a 27-17 decision to Texas at Texas. Now, I kind of get in a little bit more into players here. Marcel Reed, the Texas A&M quarterback, he's only a 62% passer, 61.8% passer, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's a bit of a turnover machine, in my opinion, when you're 2.5 to 1 in your touchdown to interception ratio. When you got somebody like Julian Sayin, who's more like 33-7, something along those lines. I don't have the numbers in front of me. You need to be better than 3-1, in my opinion. Reuben Owens, the running back for A&M, has not scored in the last 2 games. That surprised me. I think of all the numbers that I looked at, I was most surprised that Reuben Owens has not been more impactful. Casey Concepcion leads A&M with 9 receiving touchdowns. On the other side, the leading touchdown guy is former Ohio State running back commit Mark Fletcher, who has 10 touchdowns. Now, Let me get into what the Grok simulation. Play this game 100 times. A&M wins it 61 out of 100 times. So A&M wins it 61 times. Miami wins it 39 times. No ties. There are no ties in college football anymore. I think that Ohio State fans would probably rather face Miami for multiple reasons. One, make Miami have to go to Dallas. Miami has a hard enough time filling the stadium in Miami Gardens. Has a hard time coming close to filling a third of the stadium in Miami Gardens. So I can't imagine that there are going to be a lot of Miami fans at the Cotton Bowl if Miami wins the game. Number two, I just talked about Marcel Reed being a turnover machine. Can I interest you in Carson Beck? Carson Beck, to Lisa Sims' comment, is a TO machine. Absolutely. You read my mind. You read my mind as I was already delivering the comment, and I saw your comment come up. I'm like, Lisa knows what I'm going to say. Lisa knows what I'm going to say. He is a turnover machine. Three, I just don't like. I don't like the idea of getting a team 2 hours from home, if avoidable. Sorry, my sinuses are draining all of a sudden. I'm not used to talking this much anymore. So, I don't like the idea of that. And four, whether or not you really believe this or don't believe this, I think most of you do believe this. Ohio State broke Miami, absolutely broke Miami. And wouldn't it be great from an Ohio State standpoint to keep that narrative alive and well? Keep Miami broken, make Miami broken again. That would be, make Miami broken. MMBA. I think that would be a more satisfying matchup. Sure, A&M is the higher rated team. You want to go, get tested, going through the best path that you can, but keeping Miami down is hilarious. Ohio State recruits South Florida so much. I would like to see Ohio State be able to make a message for the St. Thomas Aquinas and American Heritages and other programs down there in Miami-Dade, Broward counties, and keep that kind of going. So, 61-39, according to Grok, A&M wins. Let's get through a couple of questions. Beck and Reed have the same exact passing, touchdown, and interceptions. Didn't realize that. I thought Beck's were a little worse, but I didn't write it down. Again, I did a couple hours of research on Monday. I just think Beck's meltdowns are more spectacular. And I've watched more Beck because I watched Beck when he was at UGA. I don't generally watch a lot of A&M. It just doesn't seem to work out that way. I'm much more likely to DVR a Miami game than I am an A&M game. We got Bo Dave 12. I'd rather play A&M. Their defense is Swiss cheese. Is Miami's on a whole great? I know somebody saying that Miami has a better red zone defense. That's all well and good. Ohio State's red zone offense is sus. I think Ohio State should take penalties to knock itself out of the red zone and have 20 yards to work with starting at the 20 rather than starting at the 3. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one. If I did, maybe I'd be on staff. And then I couldn't talk to you because they'd be like, well, you're on staff. You can't do shows. You're ours now. Mika says the defense is going to eat. Troy says, I just want Miami because them fans are so salty about O2. Would be cool to add to the salt. Absolutely. A little MSG to go with the salt. A little MSG to go with that. Lisa Sims, yep, they have only been complaining about that game for 23 years. Plus, they think we stole JJ. They never possessed JJ to claim ownership or that anything was stolen. They had proximity. That's all they had. It is what it is. I mean, Ohio State fans are going to get salty when an Ohio player gets away. So I mean, I get it to a certain extent, but there are a lot of Miami fans that feel like Ohio State broke into their house and stole them. To Lisa's point, South Florida Express has done a good job of spreading out its players more than its fair share have gone to Ohio State. And let's not forget that JJ's younger brother is committed to Ohio State, Angelo Smith, um, a defensive back. So looking forward to seeing him get there at some point. Um, the paper tape says Elko is a better coach than Mario. Well, does Elko know when to go for 2 versus 1? Does Elko know how to manage the clock? I don't think any head coach really knows how to manage the clock. I just think that there are varying degrees of just terribleness when it comes to that. But I do think that on a game day level, I think Elko is more consistent. I think he's more consistent on a good level than Mario. I don't know if I were a head coach making 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 million dollars a year, I'd pay out of my own pocket. Pay out of my own pocket to have not even a chief of staff, because you can get away with a much lesser title. Somebody who is my game day, concierge, who handles all of that stuff. And they always talk about in football that there is somebody who holds the 2-point conversion card and does that. But I need to have somebody who can be clear-minded under pressure and be able to advise and strongly advise, because I think at some points you're going to have to sit there and be like, snap out of it. What are you doing? To the head coach and be like, no, you call a timeout here. No, you go for 1 here. No, you do this. Now, I'm probably not winning any favor with any coaches, but if any head coaches are watching this, thanks for watching. Call me. But, I think to Paper Tape's point, I think that Elko is a more consistent game day coach. So that is the next game. And now we got the other 2 games, which we will go through quickly. And then we will talk a little bit about the situation up in Michigan. And then we will call it a night. Well, let me get here. The ODU USF game, it starts at 5. Am I going to watch that? Is 5 Eastern? Is it now I need to look. I don't even know when that game is. I've got some evening plans. I should be home I should be home about 8 or whatever. So let me look, because now I'm curious. Yeah, it is 5 on ESPN. I will not be watching that, not from lack of interest, just from lack of availability. So I learned something today. Tulane and Ole Miss. Ole Miss leads the series 44-28, including a 45-10 win by Ole Miss in Oxford this season. Strange series. Ole Miss has 2 vacated games in the series, and Tulane has forfeited a game. So, again, we're talking about, teams that are playing in neighboring states. There's a lot of crossover. There are a lot of people from Louisiana who go to Ole Miss. I'm sure that there are probably some people from Mississippi who go to Tulane. Tulane has a very good law school, from what I've been told. Not a lawyer, so I don't know that, nor do I play one on TV. The line on as a Monday, Ole Miss by 17.5. Let's remember that this is a game where we're talking about a lack of head coaches, most notably Lane Kiffin, who's now the LSU head coach. Not there. Pete Golding, former Bama coordinator, first game as head coach. Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, who had stepped in for the starting quarterback, threw for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win. But I think what also really stands out is he ran for 112 yards, while Kewan Lacey had a couple of rushing touchdowns. Jake Retzlaff was only 5 of 17 throwing for just 56 yards, as Tulane only had 104 passing yards. Since, Tulane is on a 5-game winning streak since a loss at UT San Antonio. Retzlaff is a real deal as a rusher, 16 touchdowns. Only has 14 as a passing quarterback, though. So if you can slow down Jake Retzlaff as a runner, you really taken him out of his game. Ole Miss is 5-0 in its last 5, but has only played one foe with a pulse, and that was Oklahoma team that we talked about earlier. Grok simulation here. Ole Miss wins this game 83% of the time. 83 wins for Ole Miss, 17 for Tulane. I'd like to see how the 17 happened here. Let's jump in here with a super chat from Doug. Merry Christmas, Kevin. Thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate everybody here, those who can super chat, those who can't super chat, those who sign up for Buckeye Huddle, those who don't sign up for Buckeye Huddle. But what you can do, even if you can't sign up, is you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps us out. Help us close in on 40,000 subscribers. I don't think we're going to get there before a potential national championship game, but every single one helps. So be sure to do that. That helps us out. I'll give you 3 seconds to do that. Again, all you're doing is hitting subscribe to the YouTube channel. 3, 2, 1. Thank you for that. Yeah, Bo Day was saying 5 Eastern on that game. It's just too damn early for me. If I didn't have a function tonight, if I didn't have something that I had to go to, yeah, I'd watch it. I wouldn't be drinking beers. It's a school night, but I mean, I would watch the game. I certainly would. I want to watch since Heartline is going there in terms of the game, with the USF game. So there you go with that. But that's Tulane Ole Miss. That's December 20th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Number 6 Ole Miss against number 11 Tulane. I think that game, even though that's only a 17.5-point line, I think that game is the biggest blowout, even more so than JMU versus Oregon State. And that's because I think JMU is a little bit more of an unknown quantity. And we'll get to this question first from David Greenshield, and then we'll get to talking about the final game. Then we'll talk a little bit about Michigan, and then we will go on our merry way because apparently there is a game in an hour and 9 minutes. Kevin, any thoughts on Texas and Notre Dame replacing James Madison and Tulane? I know we need to give small schools a shot. Do we? How about the best teams and games? Well, I think that the group of 5 need to have their own playoff. Sorry, but that's just how I feel. I don't know how I feel about Notre Dame. Notre Dame kind of showed its ass to me by being like, well, if we're not in the playoffs, then we're going to take our shillelagh and go home. I mean, that annoyed me. That really annoyed me. I mean, it's just real weak sauce. It's just real weak behavior by them, in my opinion, to do that. I mean, okay, your feelings are hurt. I understand that. I understand that players might opt out because if we're not playing for this, if we're not playing for the CFP and they were in the CFP championship game the year before, what's to keep them in there playing? But I just don't like it. I think that you need to take some pride in what it is you do. I think that NIL money needs to have something prorated into it where you need to play in all of your games, all the games that you physically can play now. How is that going to stop somebody from being like, oh, my arm, it's broke, and them not come in and play a game? I don't know how you necessarily do that, but I think that look, we say all the time that players work so hard during the course of the year for the opportunity to play just 12 regular season games and anything that may come beyond that. And then the first bit of adversity comes in. You're not playing in the CFP and you have people running for the hills. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Don't sell me this line of bull that, I mean, they working so hard to play in those games. Don't take those games away from them. And then they're taking themselves out of the game because, a bowl game that's not in the CFP is just a meaningless exhibition. Well, you're also, I mean, it's a chance for that visibility, for your NIL to kick in. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. So to David Greenshield's point, I think G5 should kind of have its own thing. G6, let's face it, the Pac-12 ain't nothing. I think that your lower classifications should do that, but I also believe that we should have a 48 team field, not 48 teams in the playoffs, but I think that we should have a split in Division 1A to where you have the real teams that give a crap versus everybody else who's there collecting a check, and let the teams that really want to do this go for it and not have the teams and the programs that are struggling to keep the lights on holding back progress from everybody else. sucks to suck. I mean, if you can't pay the entry fee, I'm sorry. You know, I would love to play $1,000 hand baccarat. I don't have $1,000 to play one hand of baccarat, let alone sit there and sit next to Joe Rogan and play baccarat all night, or Dana White or somebody like that, and do those types of things. You kind of need to know what tax brackets you're in. And there are just some teams that are holding everybody back because they're not in the right tax bracket and they were born into the right conference, and they're at least getting consideration when they haven't done anything to warrant it. So I don't know. I have strong feelings about it. I think that's for another show. Maybe if I can do a show, let's see. I wouldn't do a show next week, at least not on Wednesday, because that would be Christmas Eve. But we'll try and do another show before Christmas Eve. We'll see what my schedule allows. I've told a buddy that I'm going to lunch with him on Monday of next week. I've got a lunch on Thursday. Maybe we'll see if we can try and do something on Tuesday, but don't quote me on it. I don't know. Let's go through the last game. We'll go through your questions. We'll talk a little bit about Michigan. We're almost at an hour. I'm losing my voice as it is. Again, out of habit. You sit there, you don't exercise certain muscles, and then you injure yourself. And I can't afford to not have a voice. James Madison and Oregon, these teams have never played each other. Oregon was a 21.5-point favorite as of Monday. Oregon is just 1-2 overall in the college football playoff. But as long as Oregon is not playing Ohio State, everything is hunky-dory. Ohio State has handed Oregon a pair of losses last year in the Rose Bowl and then in the championship game in the 2014 season at Jerry World. JMU is one of 6 teams playing in their first CFP series. JMU has 36 rushing touchdowns, including 14 from its quarterback, Alonzo Barnett III, 9 from Wayne Knight. Hello, Newman. No, not that Wayne Knight, but their running back's name is Wayne Knight. JMU has 24 receiving touchdowns, all spread around pretty well. There's not somebody who's sitting there that has like 14 of them or anything like that. Barnett's not going to beat you as a passer. He's a sub 60% passer. JMU is shaky in its place kicking, just 4 of 8 from 40 plus, which is not good. Now I'm in before somebody's like, well, Ohio State isn't that good at kicking the ball either. Not here to talk about Ohio State. We're talking about James Madison at this point. Jordan Davison for Oregon has 13 rushing touchdowns. Tight end Kenyon Sadiq leads the team with 8 receiving touchdowns. Dante Moore is a 72.5% passer, 24 touchdowns to 6 picks. So a 4-to-1 ratio, which is much more aesthetically pleasing than some of the quarterbacks that we talked about in the Miami A&M game. And in the Grok simulation, Oregon wins this game 9 out of 10 times. Oregon winning 90 times, JMU winning 10. So you're telling me there's a chance. Let's get through the questions. We'll talk a little bit about Michigan, and then we will get out of here. Let me see where we are. Lisa Sims, thoughts about Indy crying about not making the playoffs. We kind of touched upon that. I mean, I'm not a fan of it. Certainly, we've seen Ohio State have players opt out when Ohio State didn't make the playoffs. So I can't sit there and say that, only the worst people in the world are going to complain about that stuff. I mean, you're going to have 12 teams make it, and you're going to have 18 teams that feel like they should have made it. So it is what it is, but I don't particularly like it. Mika agrees with my comments about the group of 5. So does Bo Dave. G5 should be playing for their own separate championship. I would watch the hell out of that. Let me see North Texas play JMU. Let me see some of these other games along the lines. I watched the Division I FCS championship series. I don't watch all the games. I've been watching a little less football this year than other years. I've just had a hard time concentrating, just been really distracted. But there we go. David Greenshield, everyone knows that James Madison and Tulane are sacrificial lambs. It's kind of what it's setting up to be until a G5 team pulls off an upset. And then it's going to be like, well, that was just a fluke. So it's going to take 2 or 3 times before people are like, well, maybe these teams can play. But I think it's going to take us 10 years to see 2 or 3 wins by the group of 5. Because this isn't the NC2A tournament where you're going to have a 14-seeded Colgate, just picking on Colgate, come out there with 9 seniors on its roster who all shoot 40% from 3, who've all been playing together for 8 years, who are just gel together, who are going to be able to take out a number 3 seeded Arizona team that is a mercenary team that, some of the guys only met like a week ago who are playing with each other. Football is a little bit different in that sense, and I just don't think that you're going to see that. But people want to be like, well, look at the NC2A basketball tournament. There are upsets there all the time. It's apples and Volkswagens. The two are very similar. They're both played with a ball, not even the same shape of a ball. They're both played with a ball. That is what they have in common. Point, set, match. That is it. There's not any other similarities there. Who wants to see 48? No. Florida Buckeye. Oops, late to the party. Happy playoffs, Kevin and Buckeye Faithful. Good to see you, Florida Buckeye. We'll trade text messages here at some point. I've got something I've got to go to tonight at 6, so maybe I'll get to watch a little bit of the 5 o'clock game. We'll see. We're just going to keep scrolling through here. All right, we're pretty well caught up. Just a lot of people saying hello to each other, which we're a big fan of. Everybody here doing stuff. Roll Tide for life. Lisa, glad you're doing good. Are you excited for the Ohio State playoffs? I think they bounced back from tough Indiana loss. Better than ever and repeat. I'll ask you, Roll Tide, as I talk a little bit about the Michigan scandal. What are your thoughts about Oklahoma? I'm picking Alabama to win that game. I don't know what your thoughts are. I know sometimes when you're too close to a program, it's easy to be like, yeah, well, I've seen them. I know what they're doing. I've been to the fair and seen the bear. I don't got it, but I don't think Oklahoma's going to be able to score. As I brought up earlier, Oklahoma only scored 1 offensive touchdown when these two teams met. 3 field goals, 87-yard interception return for a touchdown. I don't think Oklahoma scores more than 14, and I think that as long as Alabama doesn't just shoot itself in the foot continually, that Alabama wins this game by 10. That's just my thought. That's my thought. So take it for what it's worth. All right, the Michigan scandal. Which scandal? Well, we're talking the Sharon Moore situation, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I do want to say this. I think that what needs to be remembered is in all the rivalry, in all of wanting to see that program fall apart and burn, let's remember there is real human collateral damage in play here. Sharon Moore has 3 children. Sharon Moore has a wife who's probably pissed and devastated and everything else. Let's take a minute to remember that lives have been ruined. And while, I think that everybody in here wants to sit there and be like, I would love to see the Michigan football program never win another game again. That's one thing. I think on the other side, you have, let's not vilify the situation of where, there are children in play here. There are innocents in play here. Sharon Moore, if the allegations are true, reprehensible actions, reprehensible. There are allegations that, he has been sliding into other DMs, that there have been other things that have gone on. All of that stuff, very tragic. If he went to a victim's house, and we are not victim blaming. We do not victim blame here on the Big Me Kickoff. And there were threats and things of that nature. That's a problem as well. So, now that I've touched on that, Michigan's quarterback search, and we'll get to Roll Tide for Life's comment. I'll punch it up about the game, but I want to finish talking about Michigan here. We are seeing the natural reaction that we see when it comes to a coaching search. God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are all interested in our head coaching job, and you're not going to be able to convince me otherwise until the first 6 names off of your list or the list disappear and take, big raises where they're at or whatever. I mean, I would have said Jed Fish seemed to make the most sense. There seems to be some pushback from some of the Michigan insiders that it's not going to be Jed Fish. I don't believe for a second it's going to be Kalen DeBoer. I would have thought that, if this would have happened a couple weeks earlier, Matt Campbell would have been a good candidate just based on, his time in Toledo and everything else. I thought he would have been a good candidate before taking the Penn State job. We're going to see a lot of names out there, but it really seems like Michigan is having a hard time putting this together. And now you've got all these teams with coaches that are anywhere from hours to just days away from coaching in their bowl games. It's going to be really difficult to do anything. Michigan is watching its recruiting class start to fall apart a little bit. People opting out of their national letter of intents. We just saw a quarterback out of Charlotte, Jaden Davis, who already kind of had gotten passed up by Bryce Underwood. He just put in to transfer. Things are going to get worse before they get better there at Michigan. So I'm going to ask for, a couple of questions if anybody has about Michigan. Again, I'm going to be very careful. I don't want to sit there and speak out of turn. I don't want to talk about things that I don't know about. Certainly don't think I would ever get sued over anything, but I'm very careful about things I say in active matters like that. But Roll Tide for Life. My thoughts on Alabama-Oklahoma game is I think Bama wins by +10, like I said. In first matchup, Alabama had 3 turnovers, including a pick 6, and played as bad as you could play, only to lose by 2. We're on the same wavelength. I kind of agree. Again, I don't see this game being 21, but I could see this game being 13. I think that Oklahoma's lack of offense is going to doom it. Oklahoma averaging 17 points in its last 2 games against LSU and Mississippi State or something like that. I don't remember. I've already closed my notes. I think that going against Alabama, I think that's just going to be a problem. How healthy is Alabama? I know we've started to see some of the availability reports come out. Those things come out 3 days before the games. I don't know the Alabama roster well enough. I think that Alabama's inability to run the ball in the first matchup, I think that's problematic, but Oklahoma couldn't run the ball either. Let's get here. The paper tape asks, is Bama getting Jam Miller and the tight end? Are they coming back? That's a better question for Roll Tide for Life. I don't know on there. Let me just WV Buckeyes says Michigan stinks. Yeah, I think so. Tennis Girl says yes, they're back for the game, but let's get back to WV Buckeyes comment. Michigan stinks. Again, I think that is a fair sentiment for any Ohio State fan to have, or Michigan State fan, or Penn State fan, or Rutgers fan, or just anybody walking around on the face of the earth. But with that being said, I just don't want things to get lost on the fact that there are innocents in this situation, and Sharon Moore certainly is not one of them. So I have a hard time. My heart is not necessarily going out to Sharon Moore. I hope he gets the help that he needs, because it seems that there's some things that are going on, and I don't wish mental illness upon anybody. It's a lot. It's rough. So I hope he gets the help that he needs. But getting fired for cause, he's losing out on a big wad of cash at Michigan. That is certainly an issue for him. Thoughts on Michigan letting Ward Manuel survive another scandal? Michigan doesn't have a president. Doesn't have a full-time president. I mean, the board of trustees would have to be the one who would have to let him go. And sometimes that's like herding cats. The fact that Ohio State's board of trustees was able to sit there and have some sort of unified front against Urban Meyer still shocks me to this day, because you've got so many different voices and opinions and flavors, and there are people on the board of trustees that only care about academics, and there are people that only care about athletics, and there are people that are somewhere in the middle, and there's some people that like asparagus, and there's some people who don't like asparagus, and there's some people who think that clowns are scary, and some people who think that clowns are funny. I mean, it's a giant S show of what a board of trustees or a board of governors or board of curators, or different universities have different names for what, for the same position or whatever. So I am surprised that Ward Manuel still has his gig at this point, but who is going to run him out at this point? And the thing is that you could sit there and bring in a new president who might want to have his own AD in there anyway. So I mean, are you gonna run him and have an interim AD? And then I mean, it's just hashtag bet, hashtag bet. Um, let's just keep going through here really quick, and then we will call it a show. Roll Tide for life. So in the Alabama-Oklahoma first matchup, Bama pretty much beat themselves. I agree with you. Oklahoma's very limited on offense, in my opinion. Ohio State is clearly the best team and will repeat. It's all about matchups. It's all about how you perform. Well, I did not have a scenario where Ohio State was going to lose to Indiana. Short of being -4 on the turnover margin, some sort of implosion, some sort of thing of where Carnell and Jeremiah didn't play, something along those lines. It was going to take something significant, and I just didn't think Ohio State was going to come out as flat as it did. Lisa Sims, see you next time. Again, my goal is to do this again on Tuesday, but being the week of Christmas next week, I can't. Am I going to church on there? I have my church is so busy. I have to RISVIP for when I'm going. So I don't. Maybe I do something on the 26th. Maybe I do something on the 26th. Maybe next Friday works better because I know I'm not going to church on the 26th. But Lord knows I need to go to church and be a better person. Bo Dave likes pineapple a lot. I'm sure there are people on the board of trustees that don't like pineapple. Mika Hanna does not like asparagus. Me either. Roll Tide for Life says, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Please share the video. I think that is a good ender right there. Thank you for that. So until next Friday, maybe that's when we do this. Was here with you for an hour and 11 minutes. Planned on being with you for 30 minutes. See what you do to me. You lead me down a path and we sit there and we talk. I have no voice whatsoever. I'm going to get to my meeting tonight and people are going to be like, God, Kevin, your voice sounds like hell. But, it is what it is. I was here with my friends. So happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas coming up. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Festivus. I don't know all the other holidays out there. Just, happy holidays for those that don't necessarily adhere to one. Y'all are my friends. You're all of my people. I love you all. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.